All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Nurse Practitioners Navigating Through the Board presentation tonight. I'm very excited to have you with me, and I hope that you're going to find tonight's information extremely beneficial, as I know most of you are probably just about wrapping up your classes. If not, you have already probably finished them. My name is Dr. Mary Catherine Arnold, and I'm a Career Services Advisor. I'm actually the Career Services Senior Advisor here with the South University online program. So tonight, before we get started, I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping items, things that you're going to see throughout tonight's presentation. I am starting, as you'll notice, promptly at 9, and that's just because this is a very lengthy presentation. This whole entire presentation is going to take the entire hour and a half that is scheduled tonight. So with that being said, a couple of things to keep in mind throughout tonight's presentation. Everyone is in listen-only mode. So that means if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you're not going to actually be able to speak them. But on the right-hand side of your box, you're going to see a question box, and if you want to go ahead and type in any of your questions at any point in the time throughout tonight's presentation, I'll be sure to answer them. Now, I'm going to try and answer some of them as we go along, so we'll talk about some of the topics, and I'll stop and answer some of the questions regarding those topics. But then at the end of the presentation as well, I am going to put aside some time for us to go over some of the additional questions, anything else that might have popped up throughout your head that maybe while we went through it, maybe it was a topic that we already talked about, or maybe it was a topic that we hadn't quite touched on it in the presentation at the point that you had asked it. So we will make sure that you have plenty of time to ask your questions throughout tonight's presentation. Now, I did also mention that that tonight's presentation is a lengthy presentation, so it is an hour and a half long. Just so that way you guys are prepared, I am going to speak extremely fast because we have a ton of information to cover. Now, with that being said, I know that I'm going to move fast, but the good thing about tonight's presentation is that I am recording it for you. So if you happen to miss anything in tonight's presentation, please don't stress. Everyone who's in attendance tonight and anyone who has registered for this session will receive a follow-up email with the recording and with the link to the recording. So the good thing about tonight's presentation is that if you happen to miss anything, you're still going to have that opportunity to go back, rewatch it, make sure that you feel really comfortable with the material, and that you know kind of where to go, what the next steps are in the processes. In addition to that, and to me recording it, the one thing that I will say a lot of my students have found in the past in tonight's presentation that they found to be really helpful is to have a pen and paper on hand, so that way you can go ahead and take some notes as well as we go through it. So again, even if you don't have time to necessarily watch the whole entire hour and a half presentation in the future, or if you can't remember how far or how many minutes or approximately where in the presentation we talked about these topics, hopefully you'll still have your notes on hand that you can go ahead and come back to. But without further ado, I do want to jump into everything that we have to cover. So what are some of the things that we are going to be covering in tonight's session? The first thing that you're going to see is that we're going to talk about the next steps. So now that you've finished up with your program, what can you really expect? What are some of the things that you need to do and you need to take control of at this moment? We'll also give an overview about the general processes that you're going to come across, everything that you're going to need to know pretty much from the A to Z of becoming a fully licensed and practicing nurse practitioner. In addition, we're going to go over, since one of the next major steps that you're going to find is talking about the boards, we're going to talk about the 2 different board certification exams that are out there for you. So we'll talk about the AANP versus the AMCP. The AANP being the American Academy of Nurse Practitioners, and the AMCP being the American Nursing Credentialing Center. So we will go over a little bit about the differences between those. We'll talk about how to apply for each of those, as well as what are some of the most common questions and things that I come across with my students. In addition to talking about the AANP versus the AMCP, we'll also talk about some of the review materials that are out there that you can utilize to help you with really preparing for the exam. So what are some of the things? I'll go over some of the things that my students in the past have told me were really beneficial and really helpful, and what they liked or disliked about each of the reviews. So my goal is by the end of tonight's presentation that you can feel really educated and really informed to make and to start doing a little bit more research to make the best decision for you. Because at the end of the day, we here at South University, we care about your success. We want to see this process be as easy and as smooth of a process for you as possible. So once we talk about all of that information, we will also talk about preparing for your nurse practitioner license, how you need to go through, what steps you might need to come across and you might need to cross and do in order to get your license as a nurse practitioner. And we'll also talk about any additional steps that you might need to take kind of how to tie up some of those loose ends that might be out there as well for you. So like I said, as you can just see from tonight's agenda, lots of information, lots of things that we're going to be talking about. So let's jump in and talk about what's next. So now that you've finished up with your classes, there are a couple of things that you're going to need to look into doing. So one of the first things that I tell all of my students to do, no matter where you are in the processes, no matter how firmly you believe that you've done everything, always check and make sure that you have submitted everything, everything was submitted accurately for your classes. So what does that mean? First off, make sure all your assignments were submitted. The next thing is submitting your final clinical log. And then the last thing that I want everyone to do is to check the field encounter totals from all the courses and make sure that they are correct. And these are really important. So this stuff is, especially with the field encounters, is extremely important. And this is something that you need to take control over. This is your career. You have the power to make this go as smooth as possible for yourself. Here at South University, we do our best for you, but at the end of the day, you need to also take the responsibility because this is your future that we're talking about. So when we're talking about checking your field encounters from all the courses in your core ELM system, so in your core system, so where you've logged in and you've logged all those hours, it's important that we're checking the field encounters and not the hours tracking or timesheet. The reason for this is that the field encounters is going to make sure that, can everyone hear me? I'm sorry for the pause. I just want to make sure if you could type into the questions box. Okay. So if you're experiencing some issues with sound, I would say maybe try raising the volume, check your volume, check making sure if you have an audio input on your phone or on whatever device you're listening to that it's plugged in all the way. So anyway, I do apologize for that. I wanted to make sure everyone could hear me while we were going through this. So you will want to make sure that you're checking the field encounters versus the hours tracking and timesheets, because this is what we review at the end of your courses to make sure that you've met all the requirements as far as the clinical requirements go for your classes. Now, the reason why I'm telling you to all check your field encounters. So I know a lot of my students will ask me, oh, well, I'm not sure that, or I got my final grades, I should be all set. Here's the thing. No one's perfect. Sometimes we might have instructors who overlooked something. Sometimes we might have a brand new instructor that thought they were doing it right at that point in time when you were going through your one course, but then at the end we found out that they were going and they approved hours that they shouldn't have approved, or they approved hours because they were looking in the wrong section of your course, of the course system. So you always want to make sure that you're pulling and you're running your own report from the field encounters, because this is what's going to provide the accurate information, an accurate read on what is necessary for you to transition into a graduate. 9 times out of 10, if there's anything that holds my students up from going into a graduate status, it's because their core ELM system or the hours in their core just weren't correct. So you'll run that report. So how do you do that? So first, when you log in, you'll click on that field encounter. It's going to bring you to this page. You will then select View All Entries button on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Once it loads, it's going to bring another button up there for you, and it's going to say Export into Word. You want to export to Word option because that's actually going to export it right into an Excel file for you. And this is going to be the easiest and the fastest way to make sure that all of your hours from all of your clinicals, no matter how long ago they were, that they were documented correctly in our system. So once your Excel spreadsheet opens, you will then scroll over to the column titled Time with Patient and Consult with Preceptor. You will click on the button called Time Totals, and all of your hours will be tallied for you. Now, once all your hours are tallied there for you, all you simply need to do is check if the numbers confirm the minimum hours of each of the practice and rotations. So here's a handy-dandy list for you guys. So that way you can know what were the minimum of hours that were required for you to get your grades in each of the courses. Now, for those of my adult and gerontology nurse practitioner students, you're going to see 180 less hours as the requirement from my family nurse practitioner students, just because of the fact that you didn't have to take the pediatrics course. Everything else, so your NSG 6020 for both, no matter which specialization that you're in, that's going to be 60 hours as a minimum. You need to make sure that the hours total for that practicum stated 60 hours. The rest of them should all be at least a minimum of 180 hours. Again, we're looking in the field encounters, not the hours tracking or time track. Now, if any of your hours listed in core do not meet these minimums that you see on the screen right now, all you need to do is reach out to your instructor of that course, notify him or her that he or she will need to reopen those clinical logs for you to accurately edit. Once you've gone in and you've edited all of your incorrect hours, all you do then is you notify the instructor to verify that it looks correct on his or her end, and you also want to make sure that your academic counselor knows of any of the changes as well, because of the fact that they can follow through and they're going to make sure that everything looks correct on their end to, again, hopefully make this as smooth of a process as possible for you. So it's really something that's not time-consuming to do, but in the end, it's going to make you a lot happier when you see that you transition into that graduate status earlier, because of the fact that you knew what you had to do. You double-checked your own work. And again, this is all about taking the responsibility, taking control over our own future. So do yourself a favor. This is going to be a homework assignment that I'm going to give you guys to verify and make sure that all of your hours meet the minimums that you see right over here on this right-hand side of your screen. So once you have verified all your clinical hours are all correct, I'm going to have you do a couple of other things this evening. So the next thing that you want to do is you also want to make sure that you've completed all of the outstanding documents in your campus commons. So there are 3 documents that everyone is going to see in their campus commons that you need to complete. The first one is the application for graduation. Guys, you have worked so hard through this program. Your application for graduation tells us what name you want on your diploma and where you want your diploma sent. You want your diploma, please make sure that you're completing this. We want to make sure that you get your diploma, so you need to take the initiative and you need to complete this on your own if you have not already done so. Now, I also get the question a lot of times, since the application for graduation really kind of indicates the diploma and kind of starts that process for you. I do also get a lot of questions, well, when can I expect my diploma? Diplomas will typically take about 90 days post-graduation. So, I mean, if for any of my students who just graduated on July 10th, you're probably not going to expect your diploma until about mid-October to the end of October, just so that you have a time frame and that you know what to expect. My other comment that I want to, or my other announcement that I want to make about diplomas is if you happen to move, you want to and you need to notify someone at the university that you have moved and that you want your diploma sent elsewhere. We are not mind readers. You changing your address in Campus Commons might not trigger it in time for us to catch. So make sure that you have sent your academic counselor or your financial counselor or your career services advisor an email letting them know, hey, I moved. Here's the address where I want my diploma sent. It's a very quick, easy change on our end, but if we don't have that information, we will send it to the old address, and then you will be responsible to either somehow find a way to get that diploma or pay for a reprint. So do yourself a favor, think ahead with all these things. The second form that you're going to see that you need to complete is the Career Services Agreement. So this form is really important. I can't stress the importance enough about this form because this is what allows your Career Services Advisor and the Career Services Department to assist you. Guys, we're here to assist you as a nurse practitioner for almost 10 months after you graduate because we walk you through all of the next steps. We walk you through your processing for getting certified, talking about your license, helping you with the job search. That is all stuff that we're here to do. And if we don't have this form on file, it makes it very challenging for us to help you with this. The other major reason why this form is important is once you get a job, 9 times out of 10, the people that I've seen who've gotten jobs typically go through a credentialing process with their organization. And a lot of times that credentialing process requires verification of education from South University. Well, with this form on file, you can give whoever is doing the credentialing, you can give the hiring manager, whatever they need, you can give them your Career Services Advisor's contact information, and your Career Services Advisor can do that education verification. If it's something simple as just saying, yes, they graduated, here's the graduation date, they can do it pretty much that same day turnaround. That's going to make that credentialing process a lot faster for you, which means that you can start your job sooner. So do yourself a favor, think ahead, work ahead, and make sure that you've completed that so that way we can do and we can work for you. That's what we're here to do for you. The last one that you're going to see is an employment status form. So similar to just how important the career services agreement is, this is important to complete and return because it will let your dedicated career services advisor know a little bit more about your professional background and what you are currently doing. Now, the other reason why this is so important is that this form is also required, the information that you will be completing on this form is required for us to gather for our accreditors and the Department of Education. So guys, this is all part of accreditation, us maintaining our accreditation, which in the end of the day, it gives the value to your degree. So when career services advisors are following up, verifying your education, it's because we want to make sure, verifying your employment, it's because we want to make sure that we maintain our accreditation so that all this hard work that you put into your program, that it doesn't fall flat. It doesn't seem like it's for nothing. So again, we're working for you. It's not something that we are sitting there and just collecting because we want to. It's something that we are collecting because we want to show that your degree is something that's very valuable. Now, I know that classes are done, but just as I gave you the homework with updating and verifying your clinical hours, this is going to be your homework as well. Your homework is going to be to go back into your Campus Commons under the My Tasks and complete each of these 3 forms. The next thing that you want to do if you haven't done so already is contact your career services advisor. I can't stress the importance about your career services advisor enough for you. This is what we are here to do for you. Just as I mentioned earlier, we are here to help you throughout all the processes post-graduation. Your career services advisor is a great resource and is going to help you through each of the steps of the way. Our goal is to make this process and this transition into a nurse practitioner as smooth as possible for you. So if you have not already had a conversation with your career services advisor, tonight another piece of your homework is going to be to reach out, shoot your career services advisor a quick email, let her or him know, hey, I'm going to be available, this time or this time. I was told that we should probably touch base so that way I know that I'm on track for these next steps. Please give me a call during these times. Something brief, something short, your career services advisor will reach out to you and will make sure that you are on the right path. The last thing that we want to see is that you've done steps or you've done some things that are incorrect, and then you have to go back and redo things, and then that holds you up on the process. So again, reach out to your career services advisor. Just as I mentioned earlier, we're here to help you with boards, review materials, going over some of that information, the feedback that we've gotten from other students, as well as assisting you with getting your license at the end, and then also with helping you get a job, resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills, networking skills, job searching skills, so much more. So make sure it's really important that you contact your career services advisor. And then the last thing that you want to do is if any of your contact information has changed, you want to make sure that you have updated that in Campus Commons. Because what will happen is if you do not have your secondary or the primary email address that you use, let's say you only use your South University or you only have your South University email listed on your account. Well, eventually, if that expires on you, when your career services advisor is reaching out to try and follow up and see how he or she can help you, they can't get through to you because your email address is gone and disappeared from your file. So make sure you have not only your South University email on there, but whatever other email that you use. In addition, make sure your phone numbers are accurate. Whichever phone number you primarily use, make sure it's listed on your account. The other thing is make sure that you have your voicemail set up because I know that you guys are all very busy, and you guys will continue to get busy. Even now that school's over, you'll pick up more shifts, you'll be studying for boards, you'll be going crazy. With that being said, if it's a quick answer that we can give you and you just aren't able to pick up the phone when we call you back, or we just want to check in, we want to be able to leave you a message letting you know what is our purpose of calling, how we can help you, answering your questions. If we can't do that, then we're not being able to really kind of communicate and work you through these processes. And again, we want to make this as smooth of a transition as possible. So make sure that you update your contact information and keep that in mind with any of your contact information should ever change, just log back in, update that. So now that we covered a lot of the information about what are some of the things that you're going to need to do, I often get asked by students, where can I find my career services advisor's contact information? You just told me I was supposed to contact him or her. Where do I go to find it? Guys, it's right on your main page in your campus commons. When you log in, if you look to that right-hand side and you look down towards the bottom underneath my contact, you'll see your career services advisor's name pops up right underneath with your academic and your financial counselor. So if you don't know who your career services advisor is, just as your homework tonight is to reach out to him or her, you're going to know where to go and find them. But before I go on any further, I do want to see how many of us know who our career services advisor is. So on your screen, you will see a quick poll. Go ahead and just click on either yes or no for do you know who your career services advisor is. And it looks like we're waiting for a couple more people to vote. All right, so it looks like it's about 50-50 that half of us know who our career services advisor is, the other half does not. Again, this is part of your homework, especially for those 50% who do not know who your career services advisor is. You want to make sure that you're reaching back out to him or her, shooting them an email, giving them a phone call, leaving them a message, letting you know when is a good time for them to give you a call, so that way they can go over the rest of this information that we're going to cover in tonight's session. Tonight's session, I'm going to go through as much as possible, but there's nothing that beats having that person who can work with you on a one-on-one basis and kind of talk you through what's going to be best for you. Because tonight, it's just going to give you a lot of the basic information to get started. So let's go ahead and jump into what else is next. So after you've done all of your homework assignments that I've given you tonight, there's a couple of things that you're going to see that you want to take a look at before you take the board. The first thing that you want to do is you want to start doing your research. Research, guys. Like I said before, this presentation is going to cover a lot of information to get you started. However, there's going to be things that you're going to just need to do a little bit more research on your own because only you know yourself. You know yourself a lot better than I do. I can give you some advice. I can talk you through some of your questions, but at the end of the day, it's important that you know what to expect in your individual process. In addition, every state is going to be different with all of their processes and regulations once you've taken the boards and once you're moving forward. So it's important to do your own research, know what your specific state board of nursing requirements and practice laws are to understand what specific processes next steps you're going to need to take. Your career services advisor might know a lot of the major stuff that you're going to need to look into, might be able to walk you through a lot of the major things. However, you still want to know, and if there's any questions that your career services advisor can't answer because we just can't know all 50 states, that's going to be the time where you kind of have to take that responsibility on yourself and do that additional research. The next thing that you also want to do is decide on which exam you plan on taking. Now, there are two different licensing bodies that you can access the exam from. I mentioned them earlier that we're going to go and talk about them in just a couple minutes, about the AANP and the AMCC, but you're going to want to do a little bit more research to make sure that you're picking the right exam for you. You're picking the exam that you're going to have the most success at passing, because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. You want to pass that exam, ideally on the first try, and move on. The next thing that you want to do is consider joining the professional membership as a student. So becoming a member of either the AANP or the AMCC can save you money on the actual exam. By joining these memberships, especially while you're still in a student or like in a student classification here at South University, not only can you get the additional discounted rate on the exam, but you can also get an additional discounted rate on the membership. With the memberships, you gain access to other benefits, such as staying relevant with the industry changes, having additional opportunities to learn more about CEUs, so continuing education units, where they're occurring once you've passed the certification, to help you to make sure that you're keeping your certification in good standing. So there's lots of benefits to it. I always tell my students, now's the time to look into it while you're still a student. Maybe it's something that you're just using it just to get the discounted rate on the exam. You have that membership then for like a year, and you just kind of see, and if you don't like it or if you don't want it, then you just kind of let it lapse, and that's perfectly fine. With those memberships, I would say, like, especially with the AAMP, when we talk about the cost, and we'll go over the cost in just a couple of minutes, but you'll see that your discounted rate with like the student membership plus the discounted rate on the exam is going to save you about $15. So again, just another little benefit, some things to think about, especially before you are signing up to take the exam. In addition, you also want to start taking advantage of the APA review that is accessible via your class. So the APA review, being the Advanced Practice Education Associates review, is available to all my family nurse practitioner students in Nursing 6440, which is your 4th practicum course, and it's available to all my adult gerontology nurse practitioner students within Nursing 6340, which is your 3rd practicum course. So by now, especially if you have just finished up your classes, you guys should have all gotten your usernames and know exactly how to access it. But you do want to make sure that you're taking advantage of this review. It is an amazing tool that South University provides to their graduates, and this became something because we listened to feedback from our previous graduates. A lot of people will pay the money to go and do these reviews on their own. This is something that you now have access to. The other thing that you want to think about, and this is why I'm telling you that you want to maybe consider really taking advantage of the APA review while you still have it, is because typically your access to the MyQ Bank tends to expire right around when you graduate. Now, although that expires typically right around when you graduate, you still have that extended time to use the videos. But you want to take advantage, and you want to make sure that you're not losing out on this. So that's why I always tell my students, you know, it's something that you essentially kind of paid for with your tuition. You might as well kind of clump it all together and really utilize the resources that were given to you. In addition, some other things, this piece, the second to last bullet point, kind of goes back up to the first one with the doing your research. Look into additional reviews. Yes, the APA is a really strong review. It's going to give you a lot of great basic information, but other reviews may contain additional perspectives and that might kind of fit a little bit more into your learning style. We're going to go over these other reviews as well a little bit later, but there are going to be some other things that if one kind of piques your interest in tonight's session, you're probably going to want to do some more research on it and figure out, is this a really good fit for you or not? And then the other thing that I would say in this last bullet point is to start looking for jobs prior to passing board. Now, I'm saying start looking for jobs. I'm not saying that you actively need to apply for jobs. And the reason for that is that a lot of employers won't necessarily consider applicants unless they know that you have passed your board. And the reason for that is just this is kind of a risk. What if you sign an offer, you have an anticipated start date that should typically be enough time for you to pass the exam and get your license and get credentials or whatever else you might need. But if you don't pass your license or if you don't pass your certification exam on that first try, now that pushes your start date back, and if they really needed you at that point in time, they might not consider you. They might not want to continue to take you on board. So I have seen some students lose jobs, which is why they don't necessarily completely actively apply. But what you want to start really doing at this stage in the game is definitely work on your networking. Many of my nurses, especially if you're located in harder areas, more competitive areas such as Texas and Florida, a lot of my students find their jobs based off of who they know and based off of letting those individuals know that they're going to actively be looking for new employment once they pass their boards and that they're planning on taking their boards approximately around this date. That is one of the best things that you can do for yourself is just kind of getting your name out there, doing the networking, building your network, building those professional resources that you can utilize once it's a better time for you to move forward with the job search process. All right, so let's jump into the two exams and their differences. Regardless of which exam you take, the process is different than what you probably experienced when you took your NCLEX. So don't assume that the differences between the two exams won't affect your success, because there are a lot of basic differences that really kind of help to kind of push one student to either one exam or another. So as of September 2018, here are some of the biggest differences between the two exams. The first thing that you're going to see, and really this isn't going to matter for you, but in this first row, you just see that both exams offer both the adult and gerontology and the family nurse practitioner exam certification. So the great thing about it is that it doesn't matter which exam you take. I can also tell you that all 50 states accept either of these two exams. So really, when it comes down to it, it's just about talking about which exam you think you're going to be most successful on. But the major differences really start to come into play with the second row that you're seeing right down here, where the AAMP is a lot more clinically focused. So when I'm saying that the AAMP is more clinically focused, I'm talking about these are questions like, here's a patient with these conditions, these symptoms, how do you treat, assess, diagnose, and evaluate that patient? This is different from the other questions that you're going to see on the ANCC, which have a lot more of like administrative research and theoretical foundation. Now, although you're going to come across some of those clinical questions in the ANCC, you're also going to find questions based off of like your scope of practice, rules and regulations, policies and procedures. You are going to find research questions. So for instance, here is a research topic that we'd like to do. What's the best methodology? What's the definition of this research term? Now, going even beyond just the two general categories of the AAMP being clinically focused and the ANCC kind of being a mishmash of everything, the other major difference that you're going to see is how the questions are formatted. So the AAMP is a lot more of the way I like to kind of phrase it as like your traditional multiple choice questions, where there's only one right answer. Although there might be a couple of answers that seem like they could be correct, you always have to kind of pick that best answer that applies. That's a little bit different from the ANCC, because the ANCC, although there are some of those questions, there's also questions with the select all that applies, drag and drop in the order of importance. There are also picture questions on the ANCC. So a lot of my students will ask me, well, what types of pictures are they going to put on there? One of my students had a picture of like two hands, and in her exam, she had to pick which hand was in which stage of the disease. That's just one example. Another one of my students had a question where she had a picture of a couple different eyes, and she had to pick which patient based off of the eyes were the patient with diabetes. So it really kind of differs, but it's kind of taking that clinical aspect a little bit further to give you that visual impact. So you can see that, the questions are really different. The structure of the exams are really different. And I would say if there's anything that a lot of my students kind of say, well, I wasn't sure which exam to take, 9 times out of 10, they choose based off of the types of questions that they're going to come across and the types of questions that they think that they're going to do best on. Especially if you're a nurse that has like 30-some years of experience, I would say most of them, 9 times out of 10, I see them take the AAMP just simply because it's a little bit more clinically focused. They've had those hands-on experiences. They've worked, one-on-one with patients where they've gotten to see a lot of different things. They've been exposed to a lot of different things in the field. It's all based off of which one you think you're going to do best on. Now, you'll also see that not only are the types of questions different, but the number of questions is different. So the AAMP is a little bit shorter of an exam. You're going to find a total of 150 questions that you're expected to answer, and only 135 of those are going to count towards your score. So a lot of times I get some students who also ask me, well, what happens with those remaining 15? Well, the remaining 15 questions, they're just like sample questions. So you don't know, when you're going in here taking the exam, you don't know which questions are the sample ones and which ones that are counting towards the score. So you need to treat them all like they're the same type of question, that they're all going to be valued into your score. However, those sample test questions, those are really just to kind of help see what are students learning, what is their knowledge base. Should we use this type of question on our exam next year? Because they do update the exams every single year with new questions. They filter in new information because they're trying to make sure that it's relevant and that you're staying relevant with the whole industry. And so even though that was a little bit shorter, you do get less time to take the AAMP. So versus the ANCC, which has 200 questions, 175 of those counting towards the score. Same deal with the extra 25 on the ANCC. There's a predetermined questions. You don't know whether they count towards your score or not before you go in and you take the exam. But there are 25 questions that aren't counted towards your score. So, they give you a little bit longer to take the ANCC because it is more questions. With that, don't panic. If you're kind of looking for how much time can you spend on one question, generally I think it's around a minute. It might be a little less than a minute for each of those questions. But there are ways when you're taking the exam that you can kind of jump ahead, you can mark it to come back to reference later on. So it's all about kind of knowing how you are as a test taker and knowing the best test taking strategy for you, regardless of which exam you take. But generally speaking, those are the major differences between the two exams. Now, like I also mentioned earlier, you're going to see prices. So here's a little grid of the prices. Again, this is as accurate as of September 2018. So for the AAMP, it is a little bit cheaper. It's $315 for non-members and $240 for members. So the members and the membership, that's when I was talking about, do you want to become a member of the professional organization? So do you want to become a member of the AAMP to get that discounted rate or no? With the AMCC is a little bit different from the AAMP. It is a little bit more expensive, but when you're looking at the cost, it is $395 for non-members, $295 for ANA members, so American Nurses Association members, which is the group that's associated with the American Nursing Credentialing Center. But they also give you a discount. Let's say that you are an AAMP member. You're also going to get a discounted rate because you are an AAMP member. So they recognize both their membership as well as the AAMP membership. So that's just something else to keep in mind. Again, that choice is completely up to you, but I always like to give you as much information as possible so that way you can make the best decision for you. In addition here, I'm not going to spend any time on this, you will see where you can send your transcripts to. So again, this is going to be a good slide for once you, it's going to be a good slide for you for once you get the recording, go back, reference this information. Now, you're going to see this, and I'll talk about this when we talk about how to order your transcripts and when to order your transcripts, but do note that you can send them electronically, and this is the way that I would typically encourage my students to do. It's faster and pretty much painless for everyone involved. So, I always say do yourself a favor, kind of work smarter, not harder. And then down here, the last line, you will see their URLs of where you will go to access their applications, access additional information, where you can go and you can do additional research based off of what I've already told you. So now we've gone over the differences between the two exams. I do actually want to break them down, and let's talk about their application processes and what you can expect with each of the exams. So I'm going to start with the AAMP. So this is as accurate as of April 2019. Here is the process for the AAMP. The AAMP you can start the application process as early as 6 months prior to graduation. I typically don't encourage you to start this that early just because of the fact that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things that you need to be worried about, and I would say really focus on your classes. That's the most important thing when you're 6 months out from graduating. However, I would say about once you hit that 2 months prior to graduation mark, you might want to go ahead and start that application process. Now, please note, though, that even though you can start this application process prior to graduating, it's going to take them about 3 to 6 weeks after they've received all of your information, so all of the application materials. After they receive that, it will take them about 3 to 6 weeks for you to get your authorization attached. So even starting at 6 months earlier isn't really going to give you the benefit of being able to take the exam earlier. It doesn't impact that at all. So here are the steps for completing the AAMP application. You will first go on and create a free account. This free account is really just kind of plugging in your email address, so that way it will be able to give you electronic and automatic reminders and notifications about what items you might have outstanding, as well as information about when they've received different parts of your application materials. So it's really nice to get these reminder emails. It can be annoying at times because you're like, yes, I know that I still need this. I know I can't do this part of the process yet, but it's always nice because it is always in front of you, or they give you almost a reminder. I want to say it's almost weekly, where typically I think my students tend to get them on like a Thursday. So that part is nice. So you want to create your free account. After you have your free account created, you're then just going to complete the application. My biggest tip when you're completing that application is to have a copy of your unofficial transcripts on hand. The reason for this is because this application is going to go a little bit more in detail. It's going to ask you some information. It's going to ask you information about when you took specific classes, how many credit hours they were, what were the course codes, what was the formal name of the course, how many clinical hours, if they did have clinicals, went along with it. So it tends to be a little bit easier if you have all that information out in front of you while you're doing it. You can just kind of plug and chug and just kind of book it through that application. The good thing about the application is that it is pretty straightforward. It's not going to take a lot of time or a lot of thought process as far as completing it goes. It will probably take you between, I would say, generally, I don't see students able to really kind of do it within a half hour. I would say typically it takes them about 45 minutes. So just make sure that you're setting about 45 minutes to an hour aside just to go through it all. Worst case scenario, you finish up a lot earlier than that. So that is the one piece of advice I can give you with that. But after you complete the application, you're then going to want to submit a copy of your unofficial transcript. You're going to want to do this right away because this is going to get that ball rolling for you. So regardless of whether you're applying 6 months prior to graduation, 2 months prior to graduation, or the day after you graduated and the day after you finish up your courses, still send in a copy of your unofficial transcript because this is going to help you to expedite this process a little bit and make it a little bit smoother of a process. So you'll do your application, submit your unofficial transcript, and then submit the application fee. You want to do those 3 things at the same time on the same day because of the fact that that is the 3 major things that they need to start in order to kind of give you on their end, on the back end, their kind of preliminary stamp of approval. Now, the one thing that you're going to see on here is where I put unofficial transcript / official transcript. Here's the thing about this, guys. You still need to eventually submit a copy of your official transcript. It is important to not do this anytime soon once you graduate because it is going to take about 2 to 3 weeks for you to be cleared into a graduate status. It takes about that time frame because the Senior Director of Clinical Services goes back in, reviews all of your clinical hours. Again, this is why I said make sure that you've reviewed and you've done your own reporting on your field encounters in the core system because if you know that you have it all right, then that's going to speed up her review process as well. So you're not going to be sitting out there for 2 months saying I haven't gotten the notification that I'm in a graduate status. So you want to wait about 2 to 3 weeks after you graduate to order your transcripts. And I'll talk about exactly how you know when you can order your transcripts after we talk about both the AANP and the ANCC application process. But once you know that you are an official graduate status, at that point in time, that's when you're going to need to submit a copy of your official transcript. Now, when you submit your application, the unofficial transcript, and the application fee, you get a follow-up email. That follow-up email is telling you we need your official transcript. Please note, guys, that they will allow you to sit for the board with just your unofficial transcript. The official transcript, what that does for you is that just allows your test scores to be released to both you and your state board of nursing so that way you can start the application process for your licensing once you pass the exam. But that process would take about a month after you graduate anyway, so this is why I'm saying just submit your unofficial transcripts right away. Don't stress out about the official transcript. In the follow-up email that the AANP sends you, not only do they tell you that they need a copy of your official transcript, they also tell you that they need a letter from the program director. Here's how this works. The letter from the program director will be automatically sent for you by the program director either the following Friday or Monday after you've transitioned into a graduate status. So again, it's going to probably be if you go through and you do your homework and you've checked your clinical hours in the core system, you're going to probably transition into a graduate status within 2 to 3 weeks after you graduate. So that means that letter from the program director is being sent about either the following Friday or Monday after that 2 to 3 week time frame. Something that, again, you don't have to request from us. We automatically do it for you. Regardless of which exam you plan on taking, we will automatically send your name to the AANP. So do not stress about that. Once the AANP has gotten your applications, at least the unofficial transcript, the application fee, and the program director's letter, it's going to take them about 3 to 6 weeks to give you your authorization to test. That authorization to test, when you receive it, it's going to give you a list of testing centers near you and a code. You then use that code with that testing center of your choice, wherever they have indicated are your options. You use that code and you schedule your exam with the testing center. When the AANP approves you to take your exam, you're going to get a 4-month window to sign up for your date and time. So guys, with this whole entire process that I've just said, it is a lengthy process. There's a lot of filling out paperwork and waiting for steps and waiting for the approval. Do not wait until the last minute to start your AANP application if you plan on taking the AANP. Do not wait because that will push your test date back because you won't get your authorization to test in a timely manner. My most successful students, and I can't stress this enough to you guys, my most successful students take their exam in the first 2 months of graduating. So do not wait to start this process. Now, once you've started the process and once you've turned in everything, the great thing is that you're going to know that day whether you pass or fail. So those results are going to either appear instantly on the screen, which most times anymore it doesn't happen that way. Most times you now have to go back out to the lobby and they'll print off your results and you will find out right in the lobby. So your results, you're going to know that day within a couple of minutes of hitting that submit button whether you pass or fail. Your certification is good for 5 years. And then the other thing that if you don't do it while you actually apply for the AMC, you just want to go back in and make sure that you've requested a verification of certification to be sent to your state board of nursing, because they will not automatically send your results to your state board of nursing unless you indicate it. And then just process any of the additional applications, which we will talk about in just a moment. So let's jump in and talk about the differences for the AMCC application process, because they are a little bit different. The good thing about the AMCCs, and this is as accurate as of April 2019, is that you can start your application prior to graduation. Very similar to the AANP, you can start this process with a copy of your unofficial transcript. If you are going to do this, though, the one thing that I will kind of warn you on is that they tend to want to see all the paperwork submitted in a timely manner. So this process can also be very lengthy, and if you aren't able to submit all the paperwork in a timely manner, they will take your money and they will not give it back. So just be prepared that if you're going to see the AMCC, that you're following through and you're doing everything as fast as possible. Now, although you can also apply prior to graduation, I don't typically encourage my students to start this application process as early as I would with the AANP. I typically encourage you, if you're going to take this, if you're going to plan on taking the AMCC, start this application process about 2 to 3 weeks prior to graduating. With this, just as with the AANP, you create your free account, you go in and you submit the copy of your application. Again, the application is pretty straightforward, which is the nice thing. Now, this is where it differs from the AANP. The AMCC will not only have an application for you to fill out, but then they're going to follow up and tell you that they need a verification of education, or VOE, or something that they also call the validation form. With this validation form, this is something that needs to be completed by the program director. So this process is going to be a little bit different from anything that you're going to see with the AMCC, with the AANP. The VOE, this validation form, you will only complete the candidate information at the top. That means your basic name, email address, and mailing address. That is all you need to complete. We do not want you to complete anything else of that validation form, because you might put something that's incorrect on that form, and then when the program director goes to submit it for you, now she has to do additional paperwork, which is going to hold you up and take longer. So only complete the candidate information on that form. Once you've completed the candidate information, you just send that right to your career services advisor, and your career services advisor double checks it before they send it on to the program director for completion, and they send it on to the program director for completion. Just so that way you are aware, this validation form will take about 2 to 3 weeks for the program director to complete. Let me answer this question right away for you guys. No, there is no way to expedite this process. This process, if we expedite it for you, we're expediting it for everyone, and we're back to square one, which the process is that it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks. So you need to plan and prepare ahead of time. If you know you want to take the AMCC, you can easily fill out this validation form. It will take you about 2 minutes at the most to complete, save, and send it to your career services advisor. You can start the validation form before you even start the application process. If that part doesn't matter, but you want to make sure that you are doing this ahead of time with enough time. So you complete the application, you send in the validation form to your career services advisor with the candidate information completed. The last major thing that you're going to do, especially if you're applying, or there's 2 major things that you're going to do, especially if you're applying prior to graduation, is submit a copy of your unofficial transcript and then pay the application fee. Just as with the AANP, they're going to tell you, hey, we still need a copy of your official transcript. Don't worry. Just like with the AANP, you can still get your authorization to test with the unofficial transcript. They're just not going to release your official test scores until they have the official final transcript. Again, You don't want to order these until you know for sure that you are in a graduate status, and we will talk about that again in just a moment. So you complete the application, the validation form that gets sent to Career Services Advisor, you submit a copy of your unofficial transcript, you pay the application fee, then about 3 to 6 weeks, the AMCC is going to send you your authorization to test. The AMCC doesn't quite give you as long to schedule your exam, but they're still going to give you 3 months. 3 months, again, should be ample for you because you're planning ahead, you're deciding when you want to take the exam, you're starting the application process with enough time to go ahead and be prepared to get your authorization to test around when you want to take the exam. Just like the AANP, as far as what you can expect afterwards, your results are going to, again, appear instantly. You're going to know that day whether you pass or fail. Your certification is good for 5 years, and then you're also going to receive a PIN within 2 months of passing. So, it's something that is very, very similar. The difference is you get a PIN with the AMCC where you don't get one with the AANP. So that is the process for both exams. Now, I do want to quickly open it up for a poll. Which exam are you thinking about taking? So on your screen, you're going to see either the AANP or the AMCC. Go ahead and tell me which one you think is the best one for you. So while I'm waiting for everyone's responses to the poll, I am going to take a quick second just to answer some of the questions that I have had come across. One question is, what if one of my preceptors didn't complete an evaluation? Will that be an issue? He spoke directly to the faculty member because he couldn't log in. I'm not sure about this. This is a great question for your academic counselor, so I would encourage you to reach out to your academic counselor, verify that everything's going to be all right. They know a little bit more about the academic policies than I do, and I don't want to give you the wrong information. Who do I contact if the field encounters are still pending? This depends on when they were pending. I mean, if it was pending in a class that already gave you your final grades, you don't need to worry about it if they're still pending. If it's something that they're still pending and you haven't received your final grades for that course, you would just want to reach out to the instructor, verify that everything is correct, let them know that, hey, I saw that this was still pending, but I want to make sure that everything is kosher on your end and my end. The question is, will the diploma be mailed once the program is completed, or will it be held until graduation? For example, I finished the program January 8th, but I can't graduate until the end of June. So it's 90 days from your graduation date, which is the last day of class. And this is a great point that I didn't bring up in my presentation so far, and I want to make sure that we are all aware of this. And this is going to be really important for no matter which application that you're filling out, because you are going to see that they're going to ask you on these applications for the AANP or the ANCC, they're going to ask you questions like what is your last day of class? When is your graduation date? And what is the date that the degree was conferred? All 3 of those dates are going to be the last day of class for you. So, for instance, we just had a class that graduated on July 10th. The students who just finished their courses on July 10th is both your last day of class, your graduation date, and it's also the date of the degree conferral. So hopefully that makes sense. Make sure that you're keeping that in mind when you're moving forward. One of the students asked, where do we find these forms? So the forms, again, they are on that main page in your Campus Common. If you scroll down after you log in, you're going to see the My Task section. For any of you who might have had to fill out financial aid forms in the past, they're going to be in that same area. You're probably going to have to scroll down a little bit on that main page, but that's where you will find that. And we have a question for, I do not see Career Services Advisor listed, but I do have 2 classes left. Is it too soon? So yeah, at the moment, it probably is too soon. It sounds like you're probably graduating a little bit after when your Career Services Advisor has been assigned. Any of my students who are projected to graduate by the end of August should all have a Career Services Advisor. So if you're projected to graduate by the end of August, and you don't have a Career Services Advisor, just reach out to your academic counselor, and he or she will be able to get you in contact with someone who should be able to assist you. There is a question for why doesn't South allow us to take the exams early? The reason for that is just because historically we have found a lot of students who have not found success with the exam if they've taken it prior to graduation and prior to finishing up their courses. And that's just because a lot of students, there's just too much on your plate. So we want to make sure that we're setting you up for success. Now, if you're really concerned about taking the exam early, you can apply for the AMCC, and I have seen students who have taken the AMCC prior to them completing their courses. I can't guarantee that that's going to be the way it works for all my students. I don't see many students do it, but I did just recently have one student who had that type of success. So if you're really concerned about taking the exam prior to finishing up your coursework, that might be the direction for you to go. And then there's another question where, will we be able to listen to this presentation again since it is being recorded? Absolutely. Like I said and mentioned earlier, the recording will be sent to everyone who's attending tonight's presentation. It will be sent in a follow-up email within like the next day or two. All right, so the results are in with the poll. It looks like the majority of us plan on taking the AAMP. That's what I see a lot of times. A lot of my students do say that they want to take the AAMP. I think it's because, again, most of us have that more clinically focused mentality. That's how we've kind of been trained. We've been working in the field for a while, so it's not uncommon. I definitely think that that you're taking the time to kind of think about which one you want to take. For those of you who didn't respond to that poll, maybe you're still on the fence. If you're still on the fence, that's really a great time to reach out to your career services advisor to talk to them a little bit more in detail about what's going to be the best direction and the best fit for you. So let's get into how do I know when I can order my transcript. So this is the one part, and this is the one piece that everyone really needs to pay attention to, because if you order your transcripts ahead of being in a graduate status, you're going to have to go back in and re-request them. So the question is, well, how do I know when I'm in a graduate status? The great thing is that you are all going to receive a very generic looking email, and this is what this email is at the top. You're going to receive this exact email once you are transitioned into a graduate status. It is an automatic process for you, and it's going to look like it comes from your career services advisor. As you can see in this email, when you see it, it doesn't even have your name. This is how you know this is how you know it's very generic. It's something that can go to anyone once they transition into that graduate status. It reads, congratulations, you have met the academic requirements and have graduated from South University. We invite you to join the South University Alumni Association by registering with Alumni Connections. Your Career Services Department is available to assist as you begin your journey from college to career, and you can expect information about commencement ceremony activities from the Student Affairs Office. We wish you the best and hope that you will stay in touch. When you receive this email, you are officially a graduate. At this point in time, this is when you want to go in and you want to order your transcripts. So this email triggers everything. This email, just as what I know most of us said that we were planning on taking the AAMP. When you get this email, the following Friday or Monday is when that letter will be sent with your name on it, saying that, hey, this person has finished their program and can now sit for the board. But the question is, how do I go in and order my transcript? So you'll go in, you'll be able to do all this right from your campus commons. You'll select the My Grades option underneath the My Academics tab, which is the third tab from the right, and scroll down to the Order Official Transcripts box. Now, you'll complete the information as to where you would like your transcripts to be delivered. Here's the biggest key point right here. I mentioned this earlier when I was reading off where you can send your transcripts to. AAMP and the AMCC do accept our transcripts electronically. To do this, it's very, very simple. It doesn't prompt you in it to have our transcripts sent electronically because State Board of Nursing, most of those don't accept our transcripts electronically. Lots of schools do not accept our transcripts electronically. So this is why we don't advertise it on that page, but the AAMP and the AMCC, they do accept electronically sent transcripts from us. All you do is instead of putting the physical mailing address on that address line, just put in the email address on that address line. In the city and state and the zip, you can put an N/A. You can put the email address again. No matter how you do it, as long as you have that email address, at least on that mailing address line, our registrar will know that they are to send your transcripts electronically. Now, once you've done that, right now you guys are actually in luck. Our payment feature is down, so right now our transcripts are going to be free. I don't know when this will be changing, but this is something to think about, that you will actually skip this last bullet point, or the second to last bullet point. But the one thing that I do want all of you to do is when you order your transcripts, you want to email your career services advisor to verify that your transcripts have made it into our queue for processing. Here's the reason why, guys. Our technology is not perfect. Technology in general is not perfect. It is flawed. There are many times where maybe there is a button that you didn't click, or that it just didn't register on our end, that your transcript might not make it to our queue for processing. And you'll be sitting there and you'll be thinking, and it'll be 3 months later and you're still getting notifications from the AMC and the AMCP that are telling you, we still need your copy of your transcript. By emailing us, we can see right away that yes, your transcripts made it into our queue for processing. As long as your transcripts made it into our queue for processing, they will be processed. So that is the reason why you want to follow up on your transcripts, just to make sure that we've received your request, and that your request is going to be fulfilled. The other thing I wanted to note is that processing time is typically 7 to 10 days. When I say processing time, I mean from the day that you hit that submit button, it could take our registrar up to 7 to 10 business days to fulfill that request. And then also note that it can take additional time to travel to its destination. So this is really important to consider and to think about when you are talking about signing up for your state board of nursing for your license, because most of them do not accept our electronic copies of our transcripts. You want to make sure that you're not waiting, again, to the last minute to order and request a copy of your transcripts to be sent, because you will also need to wait for it to be not only processed on our end, but to go through the U.S. Postal Service and to be processed on the State Board of Nursing side. So something that you could have done probably within like a week now might take like 3 or 4 weeks. So make sure that, one, you're following up with us, and two, that you're doing it in enough time that it's going to get there before you would have any risk of possibly losing a job offer or possibly having your application thrown out. The other thing that I want to note is that if you owe a balance, you're not going to be able to order your transcript through the portal. All you need to do, though, is reach out to your financial counselor, and he or she will work with you to make sure that it's taken care of and that your transcripts get to where they need to go. So that is the other thing to keep in mind. But now that we talked about how to order our transcripts, hopefully there are no questions about that. If you do have questions, just reach out to your career services advisor or your academic counselor. And again, that's what we're here for. We're all here to help you. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I know we don't ever like to talk about this, but what happens if I'm not successful on the exam on the first try? First off, guys, it happens. These exams are challenging. They are made to trick people. They are made to fail people. It is not something that everyone is going to pass on the first try. There is no shame if you do not pass it on the first try. I can tell you, I am a horrible test taker. Most times on any of these types of licensing, certification types of exams, anything that would be something that's kind of more of a standardized test, I can expect to probably have to retake that test one or two times, just because of the fact that I'm a horrible test taker. So there is no shame if you are not successful with it. The first thing that I want you to do, though, is if you aren't successful with it, please notify your career services advisor. They might have additional access to other review materials, or they might be able to tell you a little bit about some of the other review materials that maybe students who have also experienced very similar things as you have, that they might be able to go over some of the resources and things that they found that their other students work for them. So really important to, notify us, keep us in the loop. We want to help, even if we can't help, because your career services advisor is not a nurse practitioner. I can tell you that for a fact. But even though we aren't nurse practitioners, we still maybe can work with the program director or work with faculty as well to help you get whatever you might need. So notify us, let us know. We're here to help. Again, also try and take the exam within the first 2 months of graduating. Just because of the fact that based off of the statistics that I've seen, from my students, my most successful ones do take it within the first 2 months. So you don't want to wait. You don't want to wait, because there are things that you don't realize that are significant to studying, significant that you've learned in your classes that are going to help you with those next steps. And then I also encourage you, if you're kind of worried about not passing it, make sure that you set aside time and you build yourself a regular study schedule. A lot of my students will say, like, oh, you know what, I built myself a study schedule that, like, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I came home and I studied for 2 hours of that, each night. No distractions, like husband took care of the kids, or, I locked myself in my office and just ignored everything that was happening around me. Whatever you need to do to study, creating that study schedule will probably be very beneficial to you. In addition, so if you don't pass, or in the event that you fail the AAMP, you will need to wait until you receive your official results in the mail. Your results can take anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks to arrive, and will show you your strengths and weaknesses in regards to like assessment, planning, evaluation, and diagnosis. So with that in mind, and this is the way that the results come in both the AAMP and the AMCP, yes, they break it down, but they don't break it down by systems of the body. So it's only by these generalized categories. Some people find them helpful, most do not. This means, though, the one thing that I will tell you about the AAMP is that once you get your results, the good thing is that you have the ability to take it a total of 2 times in a calendar year. So that means that you can take it twice in 2019. So let's say you got approved, hypothetically, you got approved to take the exam tomorrow. You could take it tomorrow, and you could take it sometime in December, and you would still be fine. And if you aren't successful in December, then once January 2020 rolls around, guess what? You can take it 2 more times. So that's the nice thing about it. It's not based off of a year from when you first started taking it. It's based off of the calendar year. Now, when you are ready to retest, all you need to do is print out the AAMP re-exam application, fill it out, and submit it to them in the mail. In order to be eligible to retest, though, the AAMP will also require a minimum of 15 hours of continuing education in your weakest areas. Now, when I say continuing education in your weakest areas, I've seen a lot of students do a lot of different things with the AAMP. Now, of course, you're going to want to reach out to them and find out what all constitutes as continuing education courses or classes, what could be used in your scenario. But some of the things that I've seen that students have used in the past, attending a review course, maybe shadowing a little bit more in a doctor's office, maybe completing modules that the AAMP provides to you. If you not only had the APA review through South, but you also went and attended a live APA training, maybe seeing if you can, if they can reset that review course that South University offered for you to give you that additional 30 hours. So there are a lot of things that I've seen students do in the past. Again, this is where I would say, although there are a lot of things, you still want to verify with the AAMP that they would accept that for your specific scenario. AMCC is a little bit different from the AMP. The one thing that you'll see with the AMCC is that you can take it up to 3 times in a calendar year if you're not successful. So that means, hypothetically, you got your authorization to test, you would plan on taking your exam tomorrow with the AMCC, you could take it tomorrow, you could take it September, you could take it December. You could do anytime 3 times within 2019, and when 2020 rolls around and January hits, you could take it 3 more times. So lots of opportunities in different ways that you can kind of plan ahead. So like I said, this is why there's no shame in it. Some of us need multiple times to take an exam. It's perfectly fine if that's the case for you. They still make things work for you as well. The one thing with the AMCC is that you may test after 60 days and after you meet all their eligibility requirements. So for more information about their eligibility requirements, you would just, again, I'd say reach back out to the AMCC, give them a call, talk with them about what they will accept. Now, one question I do get asked a lot is if I fail the AAMP, do you encourage me to take the AMCC instead for my retest, so to speak? I'd say wait till you get those final results. Let's see how far off the mark you were from passing the AAMP. A lot of times my students aren't successful with their exam the first time around. A lot of times they barely miss the exam. They barely miss passing it. They miss passing it by like a matter of 1 to 5 questions. So if that's the case for you, a lot of times you're probably going to be more successful with retaking the same exam because you know what to expect when you're walking into it versus, you're going to feel more comfortable and confident with walking into it versus changing it up, taking a test with a whole bunch of different types of questions on it, different content that you need to know. You might be putting yourself more at risk for passing rather than if you just stuck with the same exam. Now, let's say if you missed that mark by you're really far off, then maybe that is something for you to consider. But I would say definitely do research, definitely talk to others who are who have taken the exam, who've gone through the process, talk to other nurse practitioners out there, if that's something that you're really kind of on the fence about. Again, I'm not going to spend any time on this page because we already talked about it with both of the exams. Again, this is what you can expect. Once you do pass, your results you're going to find out that day whether you pass or fail. No matter which exam you take, your certification is good for 5 years. You are going to want to request your verification of certification to be sent because I don't believe either the AANP or the ANCC do this automatically for you. So typically it's just either check marking off a box when you're filling out the application or going in and filling out another page saying, yes, I want my test scores released to my state board of nursing upon passing. And then process any additional applications, which we are going to start talking about very, very shortly. But before we get into the next steps as far as the application processes, as far as the next steps after you pass the certification exam goes, I do want to break it down about some of the study materials that are out there for you, because this is really important because it's all about how you prepare for the exam. And I can tell students, I can even tell you that I know students who have been horrible test takers in the past, but really, they took the time to use the review materials that they felt like were going to be the most beneficial and most helpful for them. And that's really what it's all about. It doesn't matter which exam you take. It doesn't matter which resources you use to prepare for it. All that matters is that you pass this exam, that way you can get your license. So the first one that I want to talk about is the APEA review, which is the Advanced Practice Education Associates review. This should all look really familiar to all of you, especially those of you who have just finished up your classes or are going to be finishing up within the next couple of weeks. One of the things that you're going to see is that the APA review that South offers you, you have videos that you can watch by Emily Hollier. With these videos, the one thing I do want to highlight on tonight's session is that you get a total of 2 times to view these videos, one of which is required in your classes. Here's the thing about the other set of videos, guys. Save the second set of videos for when you are less stressed, less busy with work, school, clinical, studying, writing papers, all that fun stuff. Wait until you're kind of done with that to use that second viewing. Those videos are going to be open to you for a total of 6 months from when they were released. So if they started in your last practicum course, you're still going to have access to those videos for you for about another 2 to 3, maybe even possibly 4 months. So make sure that you're saving that second viewing for when is a good time for you to really dedicate your time to studying. The other thing that APA has is that MyQ Bank. So as I mentioned earlier in tonight's presentation, the MyQ Bank that you got through South University, it does typically expire right around when you finish up with your program. So I always tell my students, if there's anything that you like from it, anything that you think is helpful to you, then find a way to save that content, whether it's screenshotting, whether it's copying and pasting somewhere, whether it's printing, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that you have that information if that's something that you have found beneficial up to this point with your classes and with preparing for everything. Now, those are just the pieces that the South University review courses offer, but there are other bundles, so to speak, that you can purchase from the APA that you might be interested in. So APA also has not only those videos that you can purchase, they also have readings from a book. They offer live reviews as well. I believe they even offer like an audio CD. So these are all things for you depending on what your modality is. The great thing about almost any of these resources that I'm going to talk to you about tonight is that they pretty much offer a bunch of different modalities, and it's about kind of figuring out not only what is the best resource for you based off of which exam that you plan on taking, but also what is going to be the most beneficial for you based off the time that you have to dedicate for your studying. So you can always look into purchasing different bundles than the one that South University offers to you. The one thing that I will say about the live review, so I get a lot of my students say, well, I was thinking about doing the APA live review. My students who have done the APA live review in addition to the APA video reviews that Emily Hollier did that you had access in your classroom, my students tend to tell me that it's about 98% the same. If you're someone who needs to absolutely sit in that classroom and learn, by all means, please do not let this discourage you from that at all. The APA review is a very strong review out there. However, if you're someone who you feel like you're still getting that same type of experience by sitting behind a computer screen and watching those videos, then I would say if you really want to go to a live review, maybe pick a different live review to go to. The other thing that my students ask me a lot is the APA more geared towards the AANP or the ANCC? I would say, it's very much geared towards the AANP. The good thing is that most of you guys with tonight's session did indicate to me that you plan on taking the AMP. So that could be a really great resource for you if that's something that you enjoy, something that you have found helpful up to this point. In addition to the APA review, another really popular review that I hear from my students that they use and they really love is the Maria Leak review information. Now, Maria Leak offers live webinars that you can review. She offers live courses. She offers textbooks, audio CDs. The great thing that a lot of my students say that they love about her is that her review materials give you a lot of mnemonic devices, and they really help you to refine the clinical decision-making skills that you have. Now, if you're kind of looking at cost, because all of these reviews are costly, and I will say that everything throughout this process, post-graduation is still expensive, then if you're literally looking at kind of cost as being a deterring factor to going and utilizing any other review materials, a lot of my students say Maria Leak's textbook is phenomenal. So a lot of them really like the textbook because the fact that it gives you a lot of different, it kind of mirrors and complements a lot of what the APA does, but also gives you a little bit more of a unique, different perspective that a lot of them have said, it really helped them to kind of understand what they maybe didn't understand from the APA review. So those are a lot of different options. Again, there's all these different modalities. It's just about picking the right one for you. The next one that you'll see on this list is the Barkley & Associates. They also provide review books that have about 800 practice questions that cover diagnosis, laboratory and diagnostics, assessment, pharmacology, management and treatment, and professional practice. So this one has a little bit of both an AANP and an AMCC combination because of those practice ethics and things like that this book will cover. In addition to the book, they also have audio CD recordings, as well as over 600 pages of content that covers conditions that are organized by the body system. So this could be like a really quick reference when treating patients, talking about rationales and discussions with figures and tables. And then the other thing that they offer a lot of is live classroom. So when a lot of my students who have gone to the Barkley & Associates review, I have kind of gotten some mixed feedback from it. Not that, and the mixed feedback has nothing to do with whether they found it good or not. The mixed feedback was that some people felt like it was overwhelming because it is a very thorough, very in-depth review course, very in-depth review material. So when we're talking about that, I think that if you're thinking about the Barkley & Associates might be something that you're looking into, I would say just make sure that you have a really strong foundation before you're going in there, so that way you're not overwhelmed by some of the content or all the content that they're going through. Now, the next review material that you're going to see on here is the Fitzgerald review. Fitzgerald, just like all the other ones that I mentioned, they have live reviews, audio CDs, books, lots of different things. The great thing about the Fitzgerald reviews is that they provide options for additional books, test banks, and continuing education, and things like additional certification and exam preparations. So for instance, I believe they offer like a tutoring course. So if you're talking about also looking upon your skills and how to advance those skills beyond what you've learned at South University, then that might be a great thing for you to kind of do and get into. With the live reviews, the one thing that I want to talk about, because they do offer live reviews and they do offer like the audio CDs, and those are probably like the two most common resources of the Fitzgerald review that I hear my students use. The live reviews can also be very hit or miss. When I say that they're hit and miss, the one thing you have to think about is that it's not always Fitzgerald herself going into these live reviews. If you are someone who wants to go and do a live review, you want to make sure that you're looking into who is the person, who is that associate that is actually doing the review. Look at the reviews on that associate. Make sure that they have generally good feedback. Because I have had a couple students who have gone to a live review and they came back and they said it was so not helpful. They came back and they were kind of disgusted that they spent all this money on a review with someone that they couldn't either understand or someone who just didn't even seem like they wanted to be there and that they weren't invested in their learning. So that is the biggest piece. Make sure that you know who's doing the review and that you're okay with the information that you're finding about that individual doing the review. Now, if you're still saying, well, I've heard really great things about the Fitzgerald no matter what, I still want to do something, one of the top resources that I see my students utilize from the Fitzgerald review and all the different modalities that they have are the audio CDs. I have had students who have ranted and raved about how great the audio CDs are. They said that they're really thorough. It is Fitzgerald herself, so she's already recorded herself doing these. So it has that new information, it has that content, and it feels like she's kind of there in front of you presenting to you. So that's something that you can think about as well as when you're looking at all these different options. I would say out of all of the 4 that I've talked about so far, so the first 4, the ones that are more geared towards the AAMP, or the ones that are going to be the most helpful for the AAMP, are probably going to be the APA review and the Maria Leak. All 4 of them will be beneficial, but the ANCC, like the Fitzgerald and the Berkeley and Associates, have a little bit more content that's going to help you with preparing for the ANCC if that's something that you're going towards. Now, the next 2 bullet points right here, this Exam Edge and Board Vitals, I want to talk about them together because they're very, very similar. So both of these are just online resources that you can kind of sign up. You can choose what bundles you want to purchase. They have bundles, like Exam Edge has bundles for as low as $20. And a lot of times these are resources where you're going to find a lot more practice questions than anything. The one great thing about both of these resources is that you can go on and you can choose whether you are planning on taking the AAMP or the ANCC, and they're going to give you questions that are geared towards the questions that you're going to see on that exam. So because it feels like there's a lot more resources out there for the AAMP rather than the ANCC, you're kind of concerned about what those questions are really going to look like when you go in and you take the ANCC. You might find one of these to be helpful because you can also, kind of go on there and get a couple of examples about what is on the ANCC, so that way you can figure out how to answer those questions as well. But really, there's a lot of different question banks that you can go on, and that they have like practice tests, things that are just strictly for your certification exam. So I did want to make note of that I have had some students who come back and said that really kind of helped them, especially if they were taking the ANCC. And then these last 2 bullet points, I want to talk about them together as well because they're essentially the same thing. So these are both applications for your smartphone. They're broken up into the FNP and the AGNP. So your FNP Mastery app is clearly for all of my family nurse practitioner students, where the AGNP ones, this last bullet point, is for my adult gerontology nurse practitioner students. You'll see that I have 2 different ones here for the AGNP. One simply for any of my Android devices, where the other one is for my iPhone users or my Apple users. So that's the reason why I wanted to give you the full name of all of them, just that way you would know kind of what you're looking for. Really, when we're looking at the FNP Mastery app, it is an application for a mobile device. But it has about 880 practice questions, quizzes, pneumatic devices, and strategies. Both of these, the FNP Mastery app and the AGNP apps that you're going to see that are on this slideshow, both of them are kind of geared towards and come from Maria Leak. So they have information that includes content from her book. So that might be something if you're really liking Maria Leak's textbooks, you might want to look into downloading these for additional guidance. The AGNP is a little bit less of the questions. It only includes 680 exam-style practice questions with explanations, rationales, and detailed information and more. That's because you don't have that pediatric portion that you're going to have with the FNP. The other thing that I wanted to let you know, with both of these apps, there is a free version to download. So it is free to download. However, if you want to unlock all the content, it is going to cost you. It is going to cost you some money. I think the last time I checked, it was about $40. So this can be really great if you're kind of on the go a lot. But just know that, it is something that if you want the full access to it, then you would need to purchase it. So before we go on any further, I do want to go ahead and ask one more poll for you. So now that we've talked about all of the resources, which resources do you plan on utilizing to help you study for this exam? So go ahead and click on as many that apply. Awesome. So most of us have voted, and it looks like a lot of us plan on using the APA and Maria Leak. This is really common to what I see, especially when I see a lot of my students are planning on taking the AMP. So again, I would encourage you guys to still do a little bit more research, maybe talk to your career services advisor a little bit more in detail about these resources. Again, this is just kind of a brief overview to give you some ideas of what's out there to get you started with it. but it is a great way to kind of get started and to just be familiar with things that you can use to help you with your success. So before we jump into the final bits of questions, I do want to talk about what are some of the things that you need to do once you pass your board. One of the first things that you will want to do upon passing your boards is to notify your career services advisor. Again, guys, I can't stress to you enough about how much we are here to help you with all the processes post-graduation. It's important to let us know once you pass the board so we can accurately guide you through the next steps of the process, especially with your state board of nursing. There are many state board of nursing out there that require additional information, whether it be from South University or additional documentation that you need to get, that we want to make sure that you know how you're getting it and that we're doing it in the most efficient and effective way possible. The hardest thing, and I can tell you this because I can't tell you the number of times that I've had a student who has said this to me, the hardest thing for me to hear, or for any of my career services advisors to hear, is when you come back to us as a student and you say, I lost my job because I wasn't aware that my state board of nursing needed this. And the reason why it's so tough for us is because, first off, we didn't even know that you graduated. Or, I'm sorry, we knew that you graduated. We didn't even know that you passed your exam. If we don't know that you passed your exam, we can't help you, and we want to help you. So it's really hard for us to hear that because we don't want to ever see you lose a job. Sometimes looking for a job as a new nurse practitioner fresh out of school can be challenging enough. So, you know, we are here to help you with every step of the way. We just ask that you regularly communicate with us so that way we can make sure that this is as smooth of a process for you as possible. We want to see your success. So once you've notified your career services advisor, they're going to walk you through the steps for getting your license with your state board of nursing. Now, these sub-bullet points that you see under the second main bullet point, these are just general things that we typically see that a board of nursing requires. Keep in mind, every board of nursing is different. Every board of nursing has their own requirements. First thing you're going to see, though, is that you are going to need to complete the state board of nursing application for your APRN license. That is pretty much, I've not seen a single state that has not asked for an application to be filled out by you. You also typically will be asked to send in a copy of your official transcripts to the Board of Nursing. In addition to your official board or official transcripts to the Board of Nursing, they typically want to see that you passed your certification exam, so that way they know that you're certified and that you can get your license. Now, this other bullet point that you're going to see here too is initiate fingerprints and a background check. Not all states require this, but this is something that you might want to keep in mind that your state might require. The other thing that I wanted to let you know that you should be looking into doing is requesting a few copies of official transcripts for yourself. And the reason for this is that if you have your own official transcripts, you can automatically send these to the State Board of Nursing. This is something that you don't necessarily need to wait to request from us to do. Now, keep in mind, we do not ever automatically send your copy of your transcripts to anyone, to anywhere. We need your written consent in order to do that because that is against the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, your FERPA. We are never allowed to release that type of information about any of our students because that is confidential information and we're trying to make sure that everything is safe for you. So if you're requesting a couple of copies of transcripts for yourself, you have them on hand for anything that might pop up, as well as you can submit them to your Board of Nursing, or you can go back through us and reorder a copy for us to send to your Board of Nursing. Either way, as long as you do not open up these copies of transcripts that you're sending to yourself, either way works. Now, the other thing that you will want to do is you will want to, once you've applied for your State Board of Nursing for your license, you will want to apply for your NPI number, which is your National Provider Number. Not having an NPI number can slow you down with applying to positions and even hurt your chances at obtaining and securing a position. I actually had a student one time who lived in Florida. She never let me know that she had passed her exam. She never let me know that she got her license. She never even let me know that she had gotten a job. And all of a sudden she calls me up one day and she goes, I lost my job because I didn't know that I needed an NPI number. Guys, an NPI number is a unique identification number that is used in standard healthcare transactions. It helps to track and transmit standard HIPAA electronic transactions such as electronic claims and claim status inquiries. So this is going to be important because this allows them to make sure that there hasn't been any negative claims against you. It's going to speed up. It's kind of like almost like an insurance on yourself, almost in the respect where an employer is going to be able to see that your NPI is clean. It's going to speed up that process and it's going to make them to want to hire you. You also may want to look into obtaining malpractice insurance. You might need to do this on your own. Now, some employers will provide this to you, while others will require you to find this on your own. So it does really depend. I would say do your research, figure out where you might be in that. Just have some options available to you. Even if your employer does cover malpractice insurance for you, you may want to order and have supplemental malpractice insurance for yourself as well. And then apply or register for a prescriptive authority. Now, not all states require this. Typically, my states that are going to require this are any of my compact states. So, for instance, if you live in Texas, California, North Carolina, South Carolina, and New Mexico, and I believe even Arizona, if you live in any of these states, you're going to need something in addition from South University. So, and that's typically for your prescriptive authority. So what this tends to be is a form where, again, we'll have you just fill out your basic candidate information on any of these forms, and then you just send that over to your Career Services Advisor. Do not wait until the last moment. Again, if you're actually contacting and doing this first bullet point and notifying your Career Services Advisor that you passed your boards, that's going to make this process for getting your prescriptive authority a little bit easier, because a lot of times for those popular states that I just listed, we know exactly what you need. We can send you the information. We can send you the documents. We can tell you what to complete. You can do it that day, send it back to us, and that's going to get that process rolling with the program director to be able to complete it. It does take her 2 to 3 weeks, so you need to make sure that you're giving her enough time for it. And then you also will want to apply for your DEA. So this is one thing I wanted to mention about this, and I know we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to go as fast as possible through these last couple of bullet points so we have enough time to answer questions. But it's important to apply for your DEA number because this is going to allow you to distribute and prescribe controlled substances. The one thing I do want to let you know, and just kind of give you a warning so you can start financially preparing, is that this is pretty hefty of a cost. Typically, my students tell me that it's between $700 and $800. Most employers want to see that you are aware of the process or that you're already looking into it. Even though you might not be able to do it until you have a job lined up, they still want to make sure that it's going to be as smooth of a process for you to get your DEA as possible. And the last thing that you're going to see is the Medicare Medicaid. You want to make sure that you apply for this because this is going to allow you to provide care to anyone who's insured through Medicare and Medicaid. So I do want to open it up for questions and see what last questions that you guys have. Does it matter which review course you take to prepare for a certification exam? Absolutely not. This is totally up to you. You know, I say that you know who you are as a student. You know how you study best. The best way to prepare yourself for success through this process is to take and to do your research to see which one's going to fit your learning style. Again, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you do through these processes as far as how you prepare when you take the exam and which exam you take. It just matters that you pass the exam because that's going to get you your license. Can you register to take the AMCC if the retest is failed twice with the AMP in 1 calendar year? Absolutely. So altogether, let's say you took the AMP twice, you failed that, you could take the AMCC a total of 3 times in 2019 as well. So you could take one of these certification exams. You could take these exams a total of 5 times in a year. So it's a lot. I don't anticipate any of my students needing that. Typically, my students, if they aren't successful in the first try, they barely missed it. So by the time that they retake the exam the second time, a lot of times they kind of figure out what they might have missed, what they weren't really sure on. So they really kind of emphasize and focus their studying efforts on those areas as well as some of the other basic stuff. So that way when they go back in and retest it, they kind of have a lot more success the second time around. How do I access APA now that the class is closed? You'll want to go on. It was when you first received the information about your account, you'll go through that URL that was sent in that email. If you don't have it, you should be able to reach out to the APA itself, or you should be able to probably do like a quick internet search for APA review and log in through that website as well. So once I'm in a graduate status, I can send my transcript to the AANP electronically by putting transcript.ampcert.org in the address box. That is correct. That's what you would do in the address box in the city. You can either type that same email address again, or you can put an N/A. I do believe that it makes you select a state. So if you just want to put Texas as the state, you can, and then in the zip code, you could actually put that. You could either put an N/A, or you could once again retype that email address. Either way, as long as that email address is in that mailing address line, we will know that you want your transcript sent electronically. The question is, how do we find these slides again? Again, I will be sending out the recording with this information, so you'll be able to rewatch the entire webinar again. Are these official transcripts sealed? So I'm assuming that that's in reference to when I told you that you may want to order a copy of transcripts to be sent to your house. So the ones that are sent to your house, they are sealed, and they will actually have a stamp on it that says transcripts. So you'll know when you get them that these are your transcripts. Don't open them. As long as you keep that envelope sealed, you can just put that envelope in another bigger envelope and send it to wherever you want it to be sent to, and they'll know that those are official transcripts. When will official transcripts be ready after the completion of the class? So again, that's going to take about 2 to 3 weeks. That's when you're going to be waiting for that email that we talked about, that congratulatory generic email that doesn't even say your name and that asks you to join the Alumni Association. Once you receive that email, that's when you will be able to go in and order your copy of your official transcript, and that's going to take about 2 to 3 weeks after you finish your classes. How do I find out who my career services advisor is? So that's one of those things where you will, if you're still struggling, you'll go back in to watch this video again. But if you log into your Campus Commons, on that main page, scroll down on the right-hand side underneath the My Contacts, that's where you will find. Any student who is planning to graduate between now and the end of August should have a career services advisor. If you're looking at your graduation date isn't until September or later, you're probably going to have to wait another month or two until you see your career services advisor. Did you say it normally takes 5 weeks to get AANP authorization to test? So it's going to take about 3 to 6 weeks after the AANP has received all of your application materials for you to get your authorization to test. So it's 3 to 6 weeks. So, I mean, right now I will tell you that due to the fact that most traditional colleges have just graduated, the AANP and the ANCC are a little bit behind with their application materials and review. So it will probably take them up until about August until they're kind of caught back up into the quicker end of that 3 to 6 week time frame. How can I find out where the closest testing center is for me? So that information is going to be sent to you with the authorization to test. They're going to give you that list of testing centers that are closest to you, as well as the code that you will use. So then what you would do is you would pick, if you might only have one testing center that's close to you, but you might also have 3 that you can choose from. What you will do then is you will go on to whatever testing center you choose to, and you'll go onto their website and schedule your exam with that code that either the AANP or the ANCC is providing to you. The employment status form is after you find a job or now. So it's actually going to be both. So right now, while you're still a student, we do want to know where you're currently working as an RN. We know that you're probably not working as a nurse practitioner yet because typically, you got to kind of pass those boards, get your license, and do all that fun paperwork type of stuff. But right now, we do want to make sure that we have the most accurate information on files for your graduation file. If you have a job lined up as a nurse practitioner already, then you can always fill that information out with the future job. But if not, just fill it in with what you currently are doing, and we make sure that we update that once you have gotten your new job. We wait until you've been employed for about a month, make sure that you're happy there before we update that with that new information and close up your graduation file. And do I have any other questions? I know tonight's session did go a couple minutes over. All right, well, that looks like that is everything for this evening. I do appreciate that you attended. At the conclusion of tonight's presentation, you are going to see a quick survey. Just let us know how we're doing in the Career Services Department and what we can better do to assist you moving forward. We do like to get your feedback. We are here to help you guys. Like I said, we want to see you be successful, so anything that we can do, just let us know. That's what we're here for. Otherwise, again, don't forget that your homework assignment, you have a couple things to do. First thing to do is to run that report from core, make sure that your minimum hours are all, that you meet at least the minimum hours and the minimum requirements for each of your clinicals. Also make sure that you have completed all those forms that were in the My Task section of your Campus Commons. And then the last and final piece is that if you have not had a conversation with your Career Services Advisor and you have a Career Services Advisor assigned because you were graduating before the end of August, then you want to make sure that you're reaching out to him or her, touching base, making sure that you are all set with everything that you need to do. All right, well, I appreciate you all for attending. I hope that you found this really helpful. And if you need anything, please do not hesitate to let me know. Congratulations. Have a good one.